right, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you're watching us from. Welcome to another episode of Keto Rocks. I'm one half of your host, Jim Hobbs, and down to the left, right, or bottom on your screen is Mr. Brian Damage Forsythe from the Kix Band. And we are excited to have a special guest, Don Guidotti from New Jersey, I believe. And she's agreed to join us and to share her keto journey with us, how she got started on keto. So I'm just going to introduce you all to her, and then I'm going to shut up, sit back, and listen to her testimonial.
Well, I got started on keto earlier this year on the advice of a very good friend of mine who started changing his way of eating probably about a year and a half or so ago. And he was very enthusiastic about the changes that he was experiencing when he switched over to keto. Mainly, he focused on like his energy levels. He lost weight. He became very lean. His thought processes were clearer. And I think he thought that it would be a good idea for me to do, because I think he thought I might have been a little out of balance or something. And he decided that he would share that with me. He's somebody who's into a lot of like holistic and alternative type ways of living. So I kind of trust his judgment. So for me, I've always had issues with my GI system. I've had issues since I was probably a teenager. I have inflammatory bowel, reflux. I've had multiple diagnostic tests, blood work, throughout time. I've been on medication. I've changed my way of eating. Probably in my early 20s, I would say, I switched over to mainly just fish and vegetables and fruit. High fiber, low fiber, depending on what was going on. And I was advised not to incorporate any more red meat because I wasn't supposedly digesting it properly. Long story short, nothing really improved for me. And probably about 5 years ago or so, I developed more symptoms. I was having a lot of joint pain, and my hair was getting thinner, and I was always tired. And I tend to be a pretty active person. I'm an avid workout routine I have, and have been doing so for probably about 30 years. And I started to think maybe I'm getting a little too old to be doing some of the type of exercises I'm doing. I felt good doing it, but afterwards, instead of feeling good, I felt like somebody beat me up. So I was kind of questioning what was going on. So again, I had another conversation with my friend, and he said, why don't you look into this? Why don't you watch a couple of videos? He suggested Dr. Barry, who I really enjoy watching, and Dr. Berg, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. Dr. Berg, I think. Berg, yeah. I really enjoy Dr. Barry and the carb addiction doctor. Dr. I'm going to screw up his name. Cyrus or something like that. He's really on point with the physiology mixed with the psychology of eating, and he's really on point. So earlier this year, I decided to start eliminating things from my diet. I started with more starchy stuff like pasta, which is really difficult for me. I come from an Italian background where we eat pasta all the time. And rice and grains and potatoes. And then I started getting rid of like corn and peas and carrots, most fruits. And little by little, I started feeling differently. I slept better. My joints ached less. Now they don't ache at all. And my skin got clearer. It wasn't rashy, but it was really dull. My skin and my hair got very, very dull. And believe it or not, I'd gotten tested for like thyroid and vitamin D levels to see if, anything was like mimicking because they were low. They were fine. Everything, actually, I tested out fine for everything. So it really was what I was taking into my body. And now I've incorporated meat back into my diet, which I haven't had, oh my God, it has to be over 25 years since I had any red meat.
Wow.
And I know, and it's fine. I digested it absolutely fine. So I came to the conclusion that everything that I was being told to eat that was supposed to make my digestive system run better, in combination, actually made everything worse. So now I feel so much better.
Well, let me ask you a question. Since you had to kick out the pasta and you're Italian and you're in New Jersey, did they kick you out of the family? Did they kick you out of the family?
No. As long as I cook it and they eat it, it's okay. No. I still, whatever they want, they get. But I eat what I eat. But my son, he's still at home, so he eats whatever I cook. So that's not too bad.
So let me ask you a question. So so you haven't had meat for 25 years, and I don't think you told everybody, what do you do? What's your career? What do you do?
Oh, I'm a pediatric nurse. I case manage now. I used to work, direct care in the hospital. I've worked clinics, but now I case manage. But it's all pediatrics, so it's all kids.
So you're probably very familiar with the medical doctors in your community that you were seeing, so you probably know them very well.
Oh yeah. And believe it or not, let me tell you something. Believe it or not, I only go to the doctors when I have to, and I'll go for a yearly physical, because sometimes insurance wants you to get that yearly physical. They want you to have the blood work and the blood pressure and all that. So you kind of have to go. And believe it or not, my doctor has never asked me what I eat. It's
really?
It's, do you smoke? Do you drink? Do you do recreational drugs? Do you exercise? Never have I been asked, what is my diet?
Wow, that's unusual.
Isn't it? I know.
Yeah.
It really is. Looking back, it is.
So what would you say when you started to eliminate the foods, because you eliminated the pastas, then you eliminated the starches, did you start to notice your energy level increasing, or did you just start feeling better, like you weren't as full, or wasn't have as many issues? What were the benefits that you started seeing as you started to eliminate foods from these food groups?
Well, definitely more energy and sleeping better. And then eventually it got to be where my joints didn't hurt anymore.
And so I take it that since you've eliminated those foods and you've gone to, are you a strict keto lifestyle now, or do you still have some foods that you still haven't eliminated yet?
Well, I haven't eliminated any dairy as far as like cheese. Like I love cheese. So I still eat cheese. I never was a milk drinker, so that's not an issue. I eliminated yogurt. I use heavy cream in my coffee. So basically, I haven't tried like to get away from that.
Now, do you do alcohol or recreational drugs? Okay.
No alcohol, no recreational drugs, and I've never smoked. No. I love food.
Right. Now, do you find your workouts now? Do you find your workouts you're not as tired, or or now are you benefiting from your workout since you've gone to eating meat? Because that will change. Yeah, a big yes.
Oh my God, absolutely. I try to work out as early as I can during the day, and I have energy throughout the day. It's great, and then some to spare. I can tell you, before I would conk out at 9 o'clock. If I would sit down, I'd be done. I had no energy.
So what kind of exercise? So everybody knows, what kind of exercises do you do? I mean, you doing aerobics, or are you doing weights, or what do you?
Well, for the last 5 years, I was strictly doing kickboxing. I kickbox, but I started, now that I'm at home because, nothing is open, I started doing more weights again, some high intensity type aerobics mixed with weights. So I kind of like mix everything up now because I kind of don't have a choice, but.
Brian, you work out every day, don't you? Or 6 days, 6 out of 7, or do you think you get 1 day a week off?
I try to, but the older I get, the more, I don't want to kill myself. So I do take more recovery days than I used to. But my story is very similar to yours. I hadn't eaten red meat and, at least as long as you were off of it. And I was just eating fish. I was basically a pescatarian. I just ate fish and everything else. When I went back to the meat, I had no problem eating it. Right off the bat, it was just like, it was almost like I was starving for it when I first ate it. And I felt it right away in my workouts. That was the big thing. It was like, man, like all these years, this is what's been missing. That's the way it felt to me.
Yeah, but it's a lot of times, like throughout the years, I would like to have eaten it, but I was under the impression that was causing some of my problems because it was too heavy for me to digest. So it was I didn't want to feel any worse than I would feel, so I kind of just let it go.
Yeah, it's funny because that's the way I stopped eating it way back in the early 80s, and because I thought it gave me gas, and I thought that's what my problem was, just like you're saying, and I had the same gut issues, and I would go to the doctor, and they kept telling me to eat more fiber, and that just kept making it worse and worse and worse, like over the years. Yes,
me too.
And that was another thing. As soon as because I went keto first, and it sort of, stuff started to subside a little bit, but it wasn't until I went full carnivore till I noticed like all my gut issues just pretty much vanished.
All right.
Yeah.
But what's funny, when you don't feel well and you're not sure why it is that you don't feel well, and you do what you're told to do as far as eating and exercising, that just becomes like your norm, like to feel that way. So now when you feel better, it's like, oh my God, it's like starting over. Like you feel like a whole new person.
Got a renew lease on life.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, half the things that I was feeling, it was just like that. I thought it was normal until it went away, and it was like, oh, wow.
Yeah. It's funny.
Because what most people say is, well, you're just getting older. You're going to start to slow down. You just can expect this. And you're like, okay. But then all of a sudden you change your diet or your lifestyle. And that's the other question I had for you, Dawn. Do you incorporate intermittent fasting in your lifestyle, or?
I guess it's called intermittent fasting. It's funny that you say that because I never was somebody who would eat first thing in the morning. I would always wait till lunch, and I like to be done dinner early. And I was always the worst person to go out to dinner with because I wanted to go early. I wanted to be done before 7 o'clock. I didn't want to go to any late dinners. And everybody,
I'm with you on that one. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
So now that I can do this, it's not a big deal. So I usually try to stop eating by 5:30, 6 o'clock the latest, depending on what time I get done work. And I won't eat again until usually 11, I'll have something.
So what's
I want
typical
the
meal?
health benefits, but I don't want the weight loss benefits.
Right. What's
I know.
Go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, like, my personal experience was, I didn't really, I only wanted to lose maybe a few pounds, and I ended up losing, like, it seemed like a lot because I wasn't overweight, but I kind of went way down, and then I just gradually built back up. And I noticed once I got down to the lowest weight that I have experienced, I started to have trouble in my workouts. I was getting tired. I was, by the end of the day, I just felt like I was beat. And then I realized I wasn't eating enough. So I had to bump up my food intake. And that really, it was almost like the next phase or something. Because
turbocharge.
Yeah, well, I was working up to a point, and then I kind of got down to my core weight, and then then I realized I guess I wasn't eating enough, and that really boosted my energy when I increased my calorie intake. And now I creep back up maybe 4 pounds. So now I feel like I'm just sort of sitting there at the right spot.
Yeah, and Brian, you tell Dawn and everybody else who may be watching, your window of eating is from when?
Well, it moves around. It depends on, I plan my next day, if I have something early, or like I do this one, this friend of mine has this early morning podcast called Coffee Talk, and he's West Coast. He does it at 8 a.m. So it's 10 a.m. my time. And every once in a while he'll reach out and they want me to do like a cooking segment on his Coffee Talk show, which means, I got to cook food at 10 a.m. and it's like, I'm so not used to it. So I have to make sure I cut my meal off early the day before. So my meal kind of floats around. But like today I got done at, what time was I? I think 3 o'clock I got done. So the way I look at it is tomorrow I can start 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, anytime after 7 a.m., which won't happen because I don't get up till 9 or 10, and then I work out first. So I probably won't eat until mid-after. No, actually tomorrow I'm smoking a pork butt, so that's gonna take all day. So I'll probably go 24 hours before I eat again.
Oh wow.
But
do you drink anything in between, like water, coffee, or no?
I drink. I get this stuff called Relight. It's electrolyte powder from Redmond Real Salt, and I put that in my morning water before the workout, and then I'll do another dose after my workout. And that's pretty much it. Unless I'm starving, then I might make myself a cup of like black coffee or something. But usually it's just the water until I eat.
My cat, they love.
Yes, what's your cat's? Yeah, what's your cat's name?
That one, her name is Katie. She's the only female. I have 2 males and a female.
Yeah. So
Brian's got Smokey around here somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know where Smokey is today. So my fasting window goes. I allow myself a minimum of 16 hours, but it's usually, anywhere from 18 to 24. But I average probably around 20 to 22 hours.
Oh wow!
But Brian has one big meal. I mean, he's got a huge meal to get all those calories that he needs for that day.
And you can eat like one gigantic meal. It doesn't like bother your stomach.
No, as long as I eat it early enough. If I eat too late, like you were saying, that'll mess with me. I won't be able to sleep. But sometimes, and another thing I'll do is, if I get done my workout and it's like maybe 1:32 in the afternoon, I'll have like a coffee with butter in it. So that'll break my fast at that point. And then I'll, like a couple hours later, I'll make my meal. But I mean, if I'm, you know, if I'm traveling or something, I may have like a small, or my main meal a little earlier and then a little snack later. Like if I'm back when I was playing shows all the time, you know. So it's, you know, I change it around. It's never, you know, I'm not like, I don't have like set rules or anything.
The only rule you have is 16 hours.
Yeah, that's my minimum. But that's easy. 16 hours is a piece of cake.
Especially you're sleeping 8 of them, so you really ain't got 8, right? I mean, 8 hours, and then you got 8 hours, and if you're working out for an hour, I mean, it's down to 7. So
yeah. Well, it usually takes me a while to get down there too, because I procrastinate.
Kind of talk yourself into it.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, do either one of you count carbs, or you just know how much things are and that's how you eat?
I don't. Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I was going to say, when I first started keto, I was keeping track of all that stuff. But once I got used to knowing what was in what, I didn't have to think about it anymore. But now, ever since I went carnivore, I don't count anything. I just eat until I'm completely full. And sometimes it feels like I'm overeating. And then the next day I'll get on the scale and I've like lost 4 ounces or something. So yeah, I don't count anything. I just eat till I'm full. That's my gauge.
Yeah. Now, do you have cheat days? Do you guys have any like cheat days, things that you would? No.
I don't count calories either. I mean, my cheat days, you know, Brian's totally carnivore. My cheat days, I'll still once in a while have, like, I'll pick a bunch of wild blackberries and blueberries, and I'll have them in Greek yogurt. I'll put that together and have a dessert. But, you know, it's still not bad for me, but I don't consider it cheating. Well, the thing is, I got to put my glasses on to find the wild blueberries. They are like tiny, you know, compared to the stores that are genetically modified. So, you know, and they're much different. So you look at the genetically modified ping pong size blueberries they have in the store compared to the wild blueberries, and it's just night and day. So the amount of sugar that they've been modified in, which is the reason why, you know, I pretty much don't eat fruit at all anymore other than the wild blueberries and blackberries.
But it's funny, you know, you talk about the difference inside from what's like pure versus which is modified. You go to the store and people think it's great that these blueberries are the size of quarters.
Yeah.
They think that's good.
Yeah, they have no idea that in the wild, they're literally the size of a pea or smaller.
Yeah.
I mean, they're pea size and smaller. And I mean, most of the time, I'm like, my wife's got a great eye for picking them out. I'm sitting there, I'd starve to death in the wild, and I'm trying to find the blueberries because she, to be honest with you, finds 4/5 of them. I'm sitting there going, where are they? But I know where they are now. They're in the refrigerator.
Well, let me tell you how I knew that I was on the right track with getting things out of my diet, specifically sugar.
Sure.
I had started, you know, eliminating sugar little by little, and I had gone to a family function, and my sister made these peanut butter cup brownies, and they looked like they came from a bakery. They looked so good. I said, well, I can have a little taste. So I took like a size of like a dice and ate it, and I was like, oh my God, it was so good. So I'm like, well, I think I can have like a regular size serving. I, you know, ate a regular piece of brownie. I was so sick. Within, I'm gonna say 10 minutes, that thing laid on my stomach like a boulder, and I just prayed that, you know, I digested it and, you know, just could go to sleep. I compared it to like when you're young and you go out drinking and you just want to go to sleep and you feel like crap and you just pray and you bargain and you're never going to do it again, and that's exactly what it was like. And guess what? We had a birthday party and a cake over the weekend, and I didn't Didn't even miss it. I learned my lesson.
Yeah, talking about cake, did you have any of your mom's cake, Brian, or you just watch her enjoy it?
Now that I just said I don't cheat, I did take a little taste, and it was tiny. It was just a taste, and it was the same thing, but it was like, it was a home. It wasn't. My sister didn't make it, but she got it from this lady that made it, so it was like homemade. It didn't have any like the preservatives like a store-bought cake, but it was still. I'm so used to not eating sweet stuff now. I ate it, and it was like, oh man, and it was like a pencil thin slice. I mean, teeny, and it was so sweet. I couldn't handle it. Even the icing? It was coconut, coconut on the icing, and it was sweetened coconut. And I woke up the next day with it was like a hangover, pounding headache. And I was like, man, I never get headaches like this. And then I thought, oh, is that piece of cake I tasted? And not to mention the night before, I got the gut thing, that big lump in my gut from it too. And it was just a tiny little piece too. But when I first started keto, it took a while to transition. So I would very early on, I would have the cheat days, like on travel days, going through the airport, I'd grab like a big cookie from some coffee shop, but then I'd go longer and longer between those episodes. And I noticed every time I'd slip back and try that again, it would just backfire on me. Like it just got worse and worse. I guess it just became more obvious. So now it's like, I'll see that stuff at the airport or somewhere, and I'll just like, it still looks good, but it's like, nah, like I don't even have the desire to even like go there anymore.
You can like it from afar.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I just look at it and I just go, man, look at that poison. Like I said, it still looks good. Sometimes I'm really just turned off by it now because I just look at it and I see other people enjoying it, and I'm happy that they're enjoying something. So, but I just know that I just don't ever want to get back to that addiction, because it is an addiction.
Well, that's the other reason. That's the other reason I can't do cheat days, because it'll just suck me back in. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
It's like giving up cigarettes and then trying to have just one cigarette. It just doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Well, it's all or nothing.
Yeah, I think I've shared this before, but I was like you, Dawn, and I went keto back then. It was called Atkins, low carb, back in 2000. I want to say 2006 is when I first started. And what would happen was, I got down to my weight level and I was feeling really good. I was feeling very cocky, to be honest with you. So then all of a sudden I go, well, when I get my decaf iced coffee from Dunkin' Donuts, every once in a while they have a maple syrup sausage biscuit.
Oh
just one. And so I would just have one, and that would, I would notice that I weigh myself every day and see how I was. And I was like, I wasn't really gaining. I may gain a pound, but I'd be able to work it off through the week. And then all of a sudden I started noticing, I started craving again, which is the worst place to be. Yeah. And so I go, well, if one really hasn't hurt me, I can maybe have one tomorrow morning too. And then one turned into two turned into three turned into a whole week. And next thing you know, that week turned into me putting on another 75 pounds over time, because I just couldn't stop with the maple sausage. Then I was like, man, I'm hungry now. 2 hours later, I'm hungry again. And that's the one thing. Like, once you have the sugar, you're always craving, what am I going to eat next? What am I going to eat next? What are you going to eat next? And the reality of it is, our body should never feel that way. We should be able to eat a meal that's absolutely rich in nutrients and fills our body, and to go 16 to 24 hours without eating and not really miss food or not want food. It's once you get on that sugar. As a matter of fact, I was reading an article earlier today. I can't see it, but it says sugar addiction pushing the drug sugar analogy to the limit. A research that tests the validity of the analogy between addictive drugs like cocaine and hyper palatable foods, notably those high added in sugar, we're very linked together in regards to as far as the addiction that people go through when they get themselves off of the sugar. It's very hard. It's just as hard as cocaine.
Yeah, it's like the addiction doctor. That's what he
Yeah, that's like his main point. He puts that all together and it all makes sense.
Yeah. He sort of compares it to the alcoholic, you know.
Yeah, but sugar, you can be addicted to sugar. You don't realize it, but it is an addiction. Your body, it craves it, it wants it, and you think it's okay to keep eating it.
Well, you gotta real. Go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I was going to say, and also the keto flu that they always refer to, that's the withdrawal that you're going through, you know, the first 4 or 5 days or so.
Well,
I didn't have anything. You know what? I didn't really experience it that bad. I don't know if it was because I slowly eliminated things. I felt more like nauseous and dizzy and tired, but that was about it for a few days.
But back to the sugar issue, I would say probably 90% of Americans are sugar addicts.
Oh yeah.
And it's hard not to, because as we discuss all the time on our show, it's hard for you to walk into a store and not pick up a product regardless of which aisle it's in, and it not have sugar or corn syrup or some other form of sugar in that as an ingredient that causes you to want it. I mean, I can even to the point where even when I have some spices or have something that says it has no sugar in it, I can taste the sweetness, and I notice for a little bit that all of a sudden that I'm hungry more than I am. Like all of a sudden I start craving something. I'm like, well, that isn't right. And I have to really abstain or fast my way through until I get that out of my system, clear it out of my system, drink more water than I normally do. But it's tough. And especially in this country, when you walk into a grocery store, to find a item that's on the shelf that doesn't have sugar in it.
Yeah, it's funny. Somebody just today posted, it was just some goofy Facebook post. Somebody was, you know how they'll put like, what is it, Miracle Whip or Hellman's Real Mayonnaise, like which one would you prefer? And so of course I go straight to Google and I look up ingredients, and they both had soybean oil to start with, and then the Miracle Whip had high fructose corn syrup. I didn't even realize that those things had that stuff in it, but there you go, you know.
Yeah, it's a perfect point. And so most people don't even realize, even the people, you know, that's the sad part, because you got some people who go, hey, I tried keto, but it didn't really work. But the reality of it is they, in a lot of cases, don't even realize that they were still eating ingredients that had sugar, or they haven't really got off alcohol, because it's really hard to go straight keto if you have if you partake in happy hour every day, because that just totally takes you to a whole nother level. And until you it knocks you right out of ketosis.
Yeah.
And so people who say, well, yeah, but I just got to, I just have a glass of wine every night, or a couple martinis or whatever. It's how I unwind. The reality of it is they really never do get into that rhythm and be in ketosis. So they start to see the benefits of their eating lifestyle. And then they turn around and go, yeah, keto, I tried, it just didn't work for me. I wasn't feeling really good. Well, the reality of it is they were never able to get off the sugar. Therefore, they never were fully keto. They just thought they were doing keto.
Yeah.
So Dawn, your friend, go ahead, Dawn.
What's a good website or YouTube channel to look into for like a beginner like myself? I consider myself a beginner, especially, like I said, not trying to lose weight, because a lot of stuff is to lose weight on keto or carnivore.
Well, Dr. Barry is probably the best place to look, because he has, all around the best info, and he's not trying to sell you stuff. Like, that's why, I stumbled onto Dr. Berg early on, but then all that stuff he sells, it just turned me off. But there are other, there's a guy, Dr. Paul Saladino. He's a carnivore guy. I think he might go by Carnivore MD, but he's a good one because he's more into the fitness part of it and not the weight loss part of it. And that's kind of like what Dr. Berry talks about too. It's not really about weight loss. It's about fat loss, losing the fat inside, your internal fat. But yeah, Dr. Paul Saladino's one. Dr. Sean Baker is another one. He's another carnivore guy. There's I'm like so connected in all these guys. And then there's another guy named, I just got my mind just went blank. I get
well,
his,
Diet Doctor is a great site to go to, Donnie. I know you don't want to lose weight, but Diet Doctor is a great for beginners because it gives you a breakdown of the kind of foods that you can eat.
That's the thing about like Dr. Sean Baker and Paul Saladino. They're more into the science part of it, so it might be overwhelming to well, actually not. Sean Baker's pretty straightforward. He wrote a book not long ago called The Carnivore Diet, but I was looking at my email real quick to see if I can find that guy's name. And another good one is Rob Wolf. Rob Wolf, and I think he spells this ROBB, but him and his wife have a podcast they do, and if you subscribe, they'll send you little email updates every time they have a new little podcast, and they're really good. And you can even submit questions, and they'll talk about it on the podcast.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you. I don't know which one of you it was that told the story about somebody's daughter that had a bunch of, I don't know if it was autoimmune disorders or bad arthritis, and who told that story?
Yeah, that was me. That was
who is that?
Michaela Peterson. Michaela Peterson. Yeah, her dad. I heard her dad, Jordan Peterson, on Joe Rogan podcast. And he told the story about his daughter, and now I follow her on Instagram too.
She's on Instagram.
Yeah, and she also does. Yeah, if you search her on YouTube, there's a bunch of where she's given talks and interviews, and she's her story is fascinating. Yeah, age 5, she had all these autoimmune problems, and then they put her on all the medications that just made everything worse, and like really bad arthritis, and it's gone. I mean, you look at her now, you can't even tell that anything's wrong, or nothing is wrong now. But
well, I'm asking because my daughter has Crohn's disease. That's an autoimmune disease, and she's had it since she was a little girl, and she's 24 now, and she takes infusions every 8 to 10 weeks. And they keep her in remission, but the side effects are difficult. And now she's pregnant, and she's going to stop getting the infusions for the last 3 months of her pregnancy. But I wanted her to, I'm going to look into this first, and then I'll direct her. Maybe it's something that she can try or investigate, and who knows,
Yeah, my niece, she's 12 or 13 now. God, I should know. But she was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and I actually went on Dr. Berry. I'm part of his Patreon group, and he's got this Thursday night Zoom meeting where you can actually talk face to face with him. You can like raise your hand, and he'll call on you. And I discussed my niece with him, and that's what he said, like have her do keto, maybe keto leaning towards carnivore. And so now my sister's got her doing that, so it seems to be helping. But she's doing the infusion thing too right now. It's just crazy for a kid to be doing that.
Oh yeah. How old was she when she got diagnosed? Was she
Well,
recently or?
yeah, it was pretty recently, but she's been like not like she never ate much, you know, as a kid, and she always like as the years progressed, she just got quieter and quieter, and never like she'd eat and then she wouldn't feel good, and you know, and it was like all these years, you know, looking back, you realize what was going on. It was just the food she was eating was killing her.
Yeah, my daughter, she stopped eating meat for a long time just because I don't know, she saw something on YouTube and it freaked her out. But now it's funny that she's pregnant. She started eating pork and bacon and what she used to eat, like chicken and shrimp, she doesn't like. I introduced her to bone broth. I made it once, and,
That's good.
you know, now she's bugging me to make it again. So, you know,
So Dawn,
hopefully.
I've got a pot boiling back there.
yeah, I saw that. I saw that post before I jumped off Facebook that you were making bone broth in your crock pot or slow
Yeah, my
cooker.
whole house smells like it.
I love bone broth when it's simmering there for 3 days on the stove, and I love it. But Dawn, my wife actually had an auto efficiency. She was born with it. Her mom had it, and so about I'm going to say probably 6 years ago, she literally couldn't keep anything down. It's very much like irritable bowel syndrome. She went to every doctor and specialist, and they were running all the tests. And unfortunately, all the tests they were forcing her to take or were asking her to take, she would have to get back on sugar, the stuff that she was having to it was terrible. So, but long story short, I mean, we thought we were going to lose her. She was down to next to nothing. She had lost all weight. She looked like skin and bones. Her hair was falling out. And so she went strictly keto. I mean, and just strictly went keto and did some other alternative. The Beamer was one of them. But it took about 6 months, but all of a sudden she started to keep food down and she wasn't having episodes. It's like 10 times a day. And then, because we own a business, and so she couldn't leave the house, so it made it very difficult. And we used to love to travel, would love to go out, and couldn't do that anymore because if we went out to go get prime rib and eat prime rib, she couldn't make it home. It was just terrible, and she felt terrible. And then she started to feel better, started to keep stuff down, and slowly over time she started to really regain her strength. And actually the more our lifestyle resembled carnivore, the better she got. So, you know, we used to eat vegetables, you know, broccoli, asparagus. I'm trying to think what else it was all green stuff. It was all good stuff. But every time we started to have vegetables, she noticed that when she incorporated vegetables into the meal, that's when it would hit her. So we just did away with all the vegetables, and that's when all of a sudden she started to make a really big stride to getting better and improving. And now she's great. I mean, she feels awesome now, and that's no longer an issue. But the doctors ran her through all those tests, and they went through, well, you know, you need to have more vegetables, more grain, oatmeal in the morning, all that stuff that just that doesn't solve her problem. But bottom line is, by going keto carnivore and eliminating vegetables, and unfortunately, just like we were talking about earlier about the blueberries, but the vegetables have got so much pesticides and stuff on those. And just like, you know, that little slither of cake that Brian had at his mom's, you know, it doesn't take much chemicals in your body for your body to be inflamed and to do damage to it. And we have that each and every day going on. Our body, for most Americans, our body stays inflamed, and we're not healthy as individuals, and as a country, we're just not healthy because of the foods that we buy at our grocery store that has the Heart Healthy logo on it. And
they're paid off by big food.
Yeah.
That's where they get all their funding. So big food pays to have that little heart healthy sign on their products.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
well, the bottom line is money. They want money, and people are going to buy it. I mean, think about when you go to the store and they offer you samples. They're not offering you samples of anything that's great. They're offering you samples of the new thing that came out on the market that they want you to buy.
Yeah.
well, and that leads you to then having to rely on, you know, a statin drug to keep you alive, so you can keep eating that lifestyle of eating the foods off the shelf that they have the heart healthy symbol. So it really becomes a big circle that you're never getting better. You're only masking the symptoms you have. And when the reality of it is, if we start to look at food as medicine and fuel for our body, and we start to realize what octane gas we need to put in our car, our body, you know, we can start to feel like both you felt, Don, and Brian, and myself and my wife. And when you start to put the right fuels in your body and you start to eliminate the bad additives and the bad fuels, okay, that octane doesn't work. You're able to dial in, and then you really don't need a doctor. You don't need to go to a doctor, because the food is your medicine. And that's really where my passion is. I've seen what it's done for myself. I've seen what it's done for my wife. I mean, literally just eating the right proper human diet for my wife has caused her to be human again, and to have energy and to feel great and to want to do stuff. And, you know, that's what life should be about. We should be getting progressively thriving, as opposed to going the opposite direction of just, well, it's just getting old. It's just part of life. You're just going to have to take these 23 pills a day and see your doctor every 6 weeks.
Now, would your wife come on your show and tell her story? Because it sounds like a really good story.
It's a matter of fact, it's funny you say that. That's what you heard. So I just texted her and I said, hey, or I don't know where she's at on the property, but I said, hey, can you want to come in and share your story about keto and your gut issues? And she said, not tonight. I'm still at the pool cleaning it out. So, but I will have her on. She'll tell her story, because she doesn't mind telling it. We will have her on at some point.
I think that, you know, when you hear real stories from real people, I think it makes a big impact, because it's real.
Yeah.
Well, you know, as Brian says all the time, and you know, people look at you. I mean, Brian's not a doctor. I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you, I know food that's going to make you feel better. And the reality of it is, I don't care who you are. If you are a doctor, I'm not going to eat oatmeal. I'm not going to eat grains. I'm not going to buy the ping pong size or quarter size blueberries at the store. I'm not going to do any of that, because I know where it's going to lead me to. It's going to lead me back to being addicted to food and eating for pleasure and not eating for health.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, you know, it's awesome. Like, you know, thanks for coming on here, Dawn, because, you know, and thanks to your friend, what's his name again that introduced us?
His name is Sean.
Sean, yeah. So thanks people like Sean, who's living a lifestyle that's healthy, and he shares it with people like you, because it gives you a renewed lease on life. And so if we all can go out and live this lifestyle, I just think that we collectively will start to feel better. And then the more the masses starts to eat real food, and I always mess this up, but one ingredient food, not one word food. one ingredient. I noticed I was watching that thing the other night, and I was like, what the heck was I saying? One word food. Thanks for correcting me, Brian, by the way. Yeah, so one ingredient food, when we start to not to eat processed food, not the one that's full of additives and chemicals, so it has a long shelf life, you know, we'll start to have a long shelf life when we don't eat that stuff. So it's important, and it's important for people to hear different people share their stories. So Dawn, thank you for coming on and sharing your story, and you're welcome to email us or call in or check in with us. And if you got something to share, we'd love to have you back on.
Yeah, I'll let you know how my journey's going.
Awesome.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. And it's been an hour, so everybody, thanks for joining us this evening. Brian, you got anything you want to share? Let's tell everybody about your mom's 90th birthday. How'd that go down?
Wow.
Oh, it was cool. That was my first trip out of the house here for months. But, I took the chance and took a flight up to Maryland.
Oh my God.
Was your flight booked? Was your flight crowded?
No. I mean, I took Southwest, and they're one of the airlines that's sort of keeping the
6 foot or social distancing?
half empty. Yeah, in fact, everybody pretty much had their own row, except people that were together. But the airport was, I mean, it wasn't like empty, but it wasn't packed like, because I used to travel like every weekend out of the Nashville airport, and it was just, just crowds of people. And now it's like, you get around easy. It's not crowded. And then
Did you fly to Dulles? Did you go to Dulles or BWI?
BWI. So that part of it was really easy. I mean, both the plane going there and coming back was maybe 1/3 full. And then, so it was cool to see my family, and, because when I do travel up to Maryland, when we're doing shows, I always stay at my sister's. So I hadn't been there since, I think the first week in March was the last time I was there. So,
Wow.
and I hadn't seen my mother. Yeah, well, since then. And earlier, when this whole thing started happening, I was kind of worried about going up there and seeing her, because I didn't want to like bring it to her, in case I caught something. But now that I've done it, I realize it's pretty safe, as long as I'm keep my distance and keep the mask on and all that junk.
Now, does she eat like you? I mean, my goodness, God bless her, she's 90 years old.
Unfortunately, no. But she's one of those ones. She was always health conscious when I was younger, but it was always, health conscious in the way that you're not supposed to, like when margarine came out, we had margarine at the house, because they said butter was bad and that whole thing. And she always made, she was always conscious of her calorie intake. So she's always been healthy, and she always exercised her whole life. And I think that she always did yoga and aerobic exercises and even weights, like as far back as I can remember. So I think that, and she used to walk a lot too when she was younger. But but now she's older. She still loves her sweets though. And I've got her on that keto chow meal replacement stuff, just to keep, because that's good. The ketones that are in that stuff, it's good for your brain, because she's starting to get a little scattered in her old age. So
she's allowed. She's 90.
yeah.
Hey, she blew the candles out at one. She blew the candles out just like that. So that was impressive.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have 90 candles. Luckily, we burnt the house down.
Well, glad it went well. So did you just walk in the house and surprise her, or how did that go down?
I was staying at my sister's, so she didn't know I was coming. So the plan was my sister was, arranged, like she was going to go get her and bring her back to the house, and they're just going to have a little birthday dinner for her. So when it was time to go get her, I went and got her, and she didn't know. She was looking out the door waiting for my sister's car to pull up. And she saw this strange, she was on the phone with my brother when I pulled up, and she was like, "Oh, some white car pulled up out front. I don't know who that is." Because she was waiting for my sister's black car. So it was a surprise.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
But the bad part was, though, both my brothers who live out in California were going to come too. At the last minute, they chickened out and they canceled their trips. But then again, they both booked a flight. They booked a flight together on American Airlines, which is the worst airlines to fly right now, because they've been just packing them in, like middle seats and all on those flights.
Yeah, my son flew from California on American, and he said the whole flight was booked, and some woman hit the bell and said, where's about social distancing? They said, we can't afford to do social distancing. We haven't been doing social distancing. I didn't even know that it was allowed. So
Yeah.
they said, you're welcome to get off the plane if you don't feel comfortable, but at that point she's like, well, I got to get to where I'm going, so I have no choice at this point.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's scary. And I can understand why my brother's kind of chickened out on that.
Right. Yeah, everybody's got to make their own decisions. So, well, anyway, glad you surprised your mother on her 90th birthday celebration. So, well, with that being said, everybody enjoy your week. Stay healthy. Stay out of the hospitals. As Brian says, if you have a friend, you feed them meat. So give everybody a treat that you come in contact with. Give them meat. And we'll see you guys next Friday. And thanks, Dawn, for being on the show with us. We appreciate
Thanks.
you.
Have a good night, guys.
All right. Take care.
You too.